This video captures part of the horrifying attack. In it, you see a gunman dragging people to a white pickup truck in Matamoros, Mexico.
There is increasing drug-related violence, criminal organizations seeking to kidnap for ransom.
Medical tourism is a huge industry and it's growing. Until we get costs down here in the United States, it's going to continue to grow.
Did you know that Mexico is the second most popular destination for medical tourism in the world? Approximately 3 million people traveled to Mexico to receive low-cost medical treatment in the year 2020. At the beginning of 2023, a horrifying news story made headlines all across America involving the kidnapping and potential killing of American tourists in Mexico. Unfortunately, many Mexican states like Colima, Guerrero, Michoacan, Sinaloa, Tamaulipas, and Zacatecas are plagued with high crime rates. Then there's the problem of reigning cartel, violent activities that have become an undefeatable problem in Mexico. Even after many years of battling criminal organizations, capturing numerous cartel leaders, and tightening border security, Mexican authorities fail to keep them from tormenting the nation. Cartel violence and brutality have taken deep roots in the country of Mexico. It's almost impossible to eliminate all of them. As soon as you arrest one drug lord, another one emerges. It's a never-ending battle. Horrifying cases of tourists being kidnapped and killed by cartels in Mexico have become very common.
23-year-old Lisbeth Flores from Brownsville was found dead in Mexico on Tuesday, just a day after Brownsville police filed a missing persons report. Today, her mother, heartbroken and devastated, wants answers.
In 2020, Lisbeth Flores, a 23-year-old woman from Brownsville, Texas, crossed the border to visit her boyfriend in Mexico. She didn't return that night and was found dead in Matamoros, near a construction site. Later, it was discovered that Flores was killed in an armed robbery by a man named Braulio Martinez, who was a cartel member.
After a frantic search, Mexican authorities say they have found the body of missing North Carolina teacher Patrick Braxton Andrew and that he was killed by a member of a drug cartel.
Another incident happened in 2018 when Patrick Braxton Andrew, a 34-year-old Spanish teacher from North Carolina, was visiting Chihuahua, Mexico. He accidentally crossed paths with members of the Sinaloa cartel during a hike and was kidnapped, captured, and eventually killed by them. The cartel people hid his body, but when they heard that the Mexican and United States authorities were searching for the missing teacher, they relocated his body to a different location, near the village of Gaya-Paleña, where his body was found. Mexican officials concluded he was killed by the Sinaloa cartel.
A San Jose woman is one of 2 tourists killed in the crossfire of a suspected drug gang shootout in Mexico. Police say Angeli Riot was killed last week in a tourist town along Mexico's Caribbean coast.
Finally, in 2021, Angeli Riot, a 29-year-old travel blogger and resident of San Jose, California, was vacationing in Tulum, Mexico, when she became the casualty of a cartel shootout. Riot was dining at a local restaurant called La Melquerida, a popular tourist establishment, when 4 armed men rushed into the restaurant and opened fire at the diners. Riot and another German tourist were hit and killed instantly. According to Mexican authorities, the incident was caused by the Jalisco New Generation and Los Pelones cartel. The 2 organizations were engaged in intense conflict over control of drug smuggling territory. After this violent incident, the German Foreign Office issued a travel advisory to all German tourists in Mexico, stating, "If you are currently in the Tulum or Playa del Carmen area, do not leave your secured hotel facilities." As you can see, not only the United States, but also other countries are cautiously aware of the violence issues in Mexico. These instances are all equally severe and critical, yet they can't be completely prevented because the issue is larger than kidnapping or extortion. It's the overarching criminality plague and governmental struggles.
The kidnapping and murder of those Americans in Mexico is throwing a harsh spotlight on the billion-dollar business of medical tourism.
On March 3, 2023, 4 American tourists crossed the border into Mexico and were heading to a medical facility in Matamoros, a city in the state of Tamaulipas, right across the border from Texas. So the travel there was relatively easy. Unfortunately, the tourists never reached their intended destination before being kidnapped by a group of armed men. How did this event unfold? Well, it had to do with medical tourism. Let's start from the beginning. Latavia McGee, known as Tay to her friends and family, is a resident of Lake City, South Carolina. McGee wanted to have a cosmetic procedure done and decided to have it done on the other side of the border. You might be wondering why McGee couldn't have it done in the US. Why travel all the way to another country for the procedure? The answer is straightforward. It's cheaper to have it done in Mexico than in the United States.
2 million Americans travel to Mexico and other foreign nations each year for cosmetic procedures, lap band surgery, and also dentistry at bargain prices.
A growing trend of medical tourism in Mexico is due to the availability of affordable medical services. People are drawn to the low-cost health and cosmetic procedures offered across the border. Many Mexican medical facilities take advantage of this opportunity to attract American tourists to seek their services. Consider the fact that health procedures in Mexico are much more affordable than in the US. Not everyone has healthcare coverage, and medical expenses in the US are quite high for an average working-class citizen. Some people don't even visit doctors unless absolutely necessary. Furthermore, even if they have healthcare coverage, dental or vision coverage might not be included, requiring additional expenses to see an orthodontist or optometrist. For instance, if you live near the border and need braces, going to a specialist to have braces put in would cost you around $5,000 to $9,000. However, on the other side of the border, it might only cost you approximately $2,000 to $4,000. Given this situation, a person might be tempted to take a short trip to Mexico to get their procedure done and save a few $1,000s. Then there are the cases of cosmetic services like facelifts or tummy tucks. These are not usually covered by medical insurance unless deemed medically necessary. Therefore, they are essentially non-existent for individuals seeking cosmetic or plastic work done for beauty purposes. However, having these non-medical procedures done, especially in the United States, is not cheap. The price difference in Mexico prompts Americans to travel across the border for these small operations, receiving the same service at a better price. Moreover, traveling to Mexico takes minimal time. There's no need to purchase a ticket or board a plane. Crossing the border, getting the procedure done, and returning to the US is straightforward, often achievable in a day. Gradually, Mexican medical and cosmetic facilities began capitalizing on this trend. They started opening more medical facilities and offices in US bordering Mexican states, like Tamaulipas, catering specifically to American tourists and aiming to attract those seeking better healthcare service deals.
Medical tourism is a huge industry and it's growing. Until we get costs down here in the United States, it's going to continue to grow.
Something worth mentioning are the dangers of medical tourism in Mexico.
That Mexico doesn't have amazing surgeons. They have incredible surgeons in Mexico. It's just that the patients from here don't know how to research and they're going to the wrong surgeons sometimes in Mexico.
It is without a doubt that seeking medical care in another country, even if it's a quick trip across the border, comes with risks. And no, it doesn't mean that doctors, specialists, hospitals, or medical services in Mexico aren't good or reliable. It just means that there are aspects you need to consider before you decide to cross into Mexico for a procedure. You might be subject to a lack of regulatory oversight. Mexico's medical industry may not be subject to the same regulations and oversight as those in the United States. This can lead to inconsistencies in medical practices, facilities, and hygiene standards. Basically, you might want to study the facility and their inspection standards before you allow them to work on your body. Then there's the issue of identifying the quality of healthcare providers. While there are reputable medical facilities and skilled professionals in Mexico, there's also a risk of encountering unqualified or underqualified practitioners. It's important to thoroughly research the credentials and reputation of healthcare providers before undergoing any procedure. Also, a significant problem is the language and communication barrier. Language differences can lead to misunderstandings between patients and medical staff. Clear communication is very crucial in medical settings because misunderstandings can result in improper treatments or procedures, which could be life-threatening. You could be subject to limited legal recourse. If something goes wrong during a medical procedure, patients might have limited legal recourse in Mexico compared to what they might have in their home country. This can make it challenging to seek compensation or justice in case of medical malpractice. Your purpose is to save money on medical treatment. Please, don't put yourself in a position where you have to pay more than you have to because something went wrong during an operation. Lastly, there is the prominent issue of cartel and criminal activities. Certain regions in Mexico have a significant presence of criminal organizations, including drug cartels. This can lead to an increased risk of violent crime, including kidnappings and robberies, which can affect medical tourists. Please make sure you read the travel warnings before you go. Yes, Mexico is so close, Sometimes people don't care to read the warnings, but for your safety, please read them. Don't subject yourself to the danger of being kidnapped for the sake of saving a few bucks on a cosmetic procedure. Latavia McGee is one of those individuals attracted to the low-cost cosmetic services in Matamoros, Tamaulipas. She wanted to undergo an abdominoplasty, also known as a tummy tuck, which is a common cosmetic procedure. After conducting some research, McGee was determined to have it done at a facility in Matamoros. However, traveling across the border alone was a bit unnerving, so McGee enlisted a few friends to join her. She asked her friends, Eric Williams, Cheryl Orange, and Zindel Brown to accompany her on this trip. Additionally, her cousin, Shaid Woodard, joined the group heading to Tamaulipas. However, on the day of the trip, Cheryl Orange, who was part of the group, couldn't cross the border due to a lack of identification. Orange had to remain in Texas, while her friends continued their journey into Mexico. This might have been a blessing in disguise, because what happened next was not just horrific, but gruesome.
We turned down this little side road because we was gonna see if that led us to the destination and we was gonna turn around. We heard a car beat the horn and pulled around us. Zindel was in the back seat. He said, "Don't stop." He saw a gun.
As the group continued towards their destination, an unexpected incident occurred. Another car, filled with armed men, approached their vehicle on the road and started firing at them, forcing them to stop their car. After they came to a halt, the other car blocked their exit, and several men got out of the car, urging the Americans to exit their vehicle and get into the back of a pickup truck. What sets this incident apart is the fact that the kidnapping process of the tourists was caught on camera. Yes, someone managed to record the entire process of this crime and upload it to social media. The recording went viral, and it was later broadcasted on the news to help the authorities identify and locate Latavia McGee and her friends.
This video depicts part of the kidnapping, appearing to show one woman walking on her own, forced into a white pickup truck. Armed men with bulletproof vests are then seen dragging other people into the vehicle.
From the video, we can see that the armed men were ushering and dragging the tourists onto the back of a truck while aiming their weapons at them. Latavia McGee was seen walking in the footage, while two of her friends were dragged onto the vehicle. Unfortunately, Shaid Woodard and Zindel Brown were killed during the kidnapping process, and you can see the abductor dragging their lifeless bodies onto the truck in the recording. The next day, Cheryl Orange tried contacting the group but received no responses. The friends and family of the four had no idea where they were, so they reported them missing. Additionally, the recorded video of the kidnapping made its way across social media, so law enforcement had a good idea of what happened to McGee and her friends. The quest to locate Latavia McGee, Eric Williams, Shaid Woodard, and Zindel Brown was underway. It was speculated that the tourists were kidnapped by a cartel because the tactic seemed very well executed. Therefore, U.S. and Mexican officials were looking into cartel operations, and they were prepared to negotiate. On the other side, the cartel responsible for the kidnapping must have known U.S. and Mexican authorities were looking for them because they made an effort to stay hidden. The search lasted a few days, but finally, authorities were able to locate them on March 7, 2023, in a wooden shack on the outskirts of Matamoros. Shaid Woodard and Zindel Brown's dead bodies were recovered from the shack. Latavia McGee and Eric Williams suffered from serious injuries, but at least they were alive. Their families were relieved to learn that they were coming home.
I had to hold them all. I said, I'm so appreciated. I was thanking the Lord. I said, thank you, Jesus, a God.
The entire incident was a result of cartel violence, yet it is unclear why the cartel targeted these tourists. Was it just a random attack, or was it planned? The U.S. government believes that the tourists were kidnapped because the abductors knew they were Americans. However, the Mexican authorities insist that it was a misunderstanding. They believe that the cartel had mistaken the Americans for a rival gang. Regardless of the reason, it still doesn't make the situation any better. We have 2 people who were killed and 2 people who were subjected to insane conditions. It may have been a mistake, but that doesn't erase the damage that was done. It couldn't be more brutal. These tourists were kidnapped in broad daylight. Those men opened fire at their car and killed 2 people on the spot. They either premeditated the kidnapping, or they're just really good at abducting people. We can only guess how many other people were abducted and killed by these cartels. However, something strange happened at the end of this story. Throughout the kidnapping case, no one was really sure which cartel or criminal organization was responsible for this crime. Then, something unexpected happened. A handwritten apology letter surfaced, apologizing and expressing their remorse about the kidnapping and killing of the American tourists. The letter was revealed to be from the Gulf Cartel, a major drug cartel based in Matamoros, Mexico.
These three, plus another known as the Gulf Cartel, are the most powerful in the country. The Gulf Cartel is the oldest cartel in Mexico.
The Gulf Cartel is one of the oldest and most prominent criminal drug trafficking organizations in Mexico. The cartel is currently located in Matamoros, Tamaulipas, which is located directly across the border from Brownsville, Texas. The Gulf Cartel was founded in the 1930s by Juan Nepomuceno Guerrero, a former Mexican drug lord. Some people referred to him as the godfather of the U.S.-Mexico border cartels. He even has a street named after him in Reynosa, Tamaulipas. The man is a criminal legend. During the time of Juan Nepomuceno Guerrero's leadership, the United States was still living under the 18th Amendment, which outlawed the manufacture, distribution, and selling of alcohol. Basically, the U.S. government was placing everyone under a sobering strike. The Prohibition era opened up the market for organized crime associated with the illegal distribution of alcohol, which the Gulf Cartel took full advantage of. The cartel began smuggling alcohol and other illegal goods into the United States in large quantities. When alcohol was legalized again in the States, the cartel switched to operating gambling houses, prostitution rings, car theft networks, and particularly when smuggling. Their illegal operation lasted for over 40 years. The cartel expanded rapidly in the 1970s under the leadership of Kingpin Juan Garcia Abrego, who's the successor and nephew of Juan Nepomuceno Guerrero.
With the Gulf Cartel, we have these families that are really entrenched in the community. They really are related to many, many people in the community, and that gives them kind of a wide support base. And so it's also hard to really kind of root them out. And they've been involved in this smuggling really for decades and decades.
It wasn't until the 1980s that the Gulf Cartel switched to cocaine smuggling, probably due to their partnership with a Colombian crime organization called the Cali Cartel. During this time, cocaine was the #1 demanded drug in the U.S. In the 1990s, it was estimated that the Gulf Cartel was responsible for 1/3 of the amount of cocaine smuggled across the U.S. border from their supplier in Colombia. Their net worth was approximately $10 billion.
So it seems like they're becoming much more localized, much less powerful, and they're really more threatened by their outside rivals, such as Los Zetas, and they're more reliant on the help of their outside allies, such as the Sinaloa cartel.
After the arrest of Garcia Abrego, there was a power shift in the cartel. The new leader founded the paramilitary group called Los Zetas, which was supposed to serve as the enforcer for the cartel. But the Zetas soon broke free from the Gulf Cartel and became their rival in 2010. The Zetas may sound familiar, and that's because you've probably heard of them in the news before. They are an extremely violent criminal cartel known for committing mass killings, brutal tortures, kidnapping, extortion, and drug smuggling. Cartels and criminal organizations are complex in terms of rivalry and partnership. Their relationships are symbiotic. They're either trying to gain benefits or taking advantage of one another. There's no straightforward relationship with them. All of this is to say that the violent turf wars and gang rivalries have inflicted chaos and bloodshed into the lives of civilians. And because of instances like this, the country of Mexico has become a place tourists avoid. Overall, cartel violence and the influence of criminal organizations have given the country a bad reputation and worsened its diplomatic relationship with the United States due to border criminality. Now back to the handwritten letter. It was issued by the Gulf Cartel, which admitted to be behind the abduction and murder of the tourists. In the letter, the cartel apologized profusely about the incident and expressed their deep regret about the situation. But that's not all. The letter was attached to 5 members of the cartel who supposedly played a direct role in the situation, and they were tied up against a vehicle. This event sparked a lot of curiosity, because in what universe does a major drug cartel ever apologize? The 5 men have been apprehended by the Mexican authorities. In the letter, the cartel expressed that harming innocent people is not their motto, and they acknowledged their wrongdoings by handing over the responsible members. The not harming the innocent part is disputable, because the drug war has been an ongoing problem since the early 2000s. Cartels and gangs constantly engage in turf wars and battles over smuggling route leadership, which is a common theme in Mexico. There have been instances where innocent people lost their lives due to cartel conflicts, so that reason is not convincing. Perhaps they were fed up with some of the cartel members' undisciplined actions, so they decided to hand them over as a way of punishment. Or maybe they did develop a sense of morality after all this time. Whatever the reason behind their apology, we might never know. But the Gulf Cartel might have helped the Mexican authorities in this case, because it was highly unlikely that they were able to produce any result with investigation.
This is considered by the State Department a level 4 which says that's what Afghanistan is a level 4. That these are not places that any American should be going.
In October of 2022, the U.S. issued a level 4 travel warning for Mexico, and it was reinstated after the kidnapping incident in March 2023. The U.S. government issued a do not travel to advisory for the states of Colima, Guerrero, Michoacan, Sinaloa, Tamaulipas, and Zacatecas due to crime and kidnapping. Additionally, a reconsider travel to advisory was issued for the states of Baja California, Chihuahua, Durango, Guanajuato, Jalisco, Morelos, and Sonora. The American tourists who lost their lives in March 2023 due to cartel criminality serve as a reminder of the risks associated with seeking medical services in regions marked by criminal activities. Until the issue is resolved, it's best for tourists to be informed and take the necessary precautions to protect themselves. Nothing is more important than your safety. So if you're a tourist, please check the travel warnings and conduct thorough research on your destination. Please stay safe. Is it worth traveling to a dangerous city for a reduced medical bill? Do you check for travel warnings before going to another country? We would love to hear your answers in the comments. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications.